passe super, l'artiste, super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De i semifinale igjen!
Welcome to Uninformed Handball Hour after some amazing games of handball, real nail-biter finishes, and an incredible Group B shaping up. I'm exhausted after today. How are you doing, Chris and Brian?
Well, I'm a bit disappointed. Watching that Iceland-Netherlands game, I was like, whoever's going to win this, I'm actually going to be happy for them. The two teams you watch and you're like, it's good to see them have success. But then I was like, a draw was the fair result at the end of that. And that ludicrous attacking foul decision in the final minute really cost the Netherlands a point there. And it's a pity, but it's still wide open for them, even with the loss. I think they don't even have to win their final game and they could go through. So the fairy tale is still alive for the Dutch. And today was a good day. The last couple of days since our last podcast have been good days.
Yeah, it's been, I think, really, really entertaining. And I think it's been slowly increasing over the last few days. But to touch on what Chris said there, probably Aaron Parmesan, probably the dive of the tournament. Would you call it a dive? Or is that not fair? I think it was very tactically astute, I would say. He knew when the pressure was on the referees, and if I fall over here, and all of a sudden there's a bit of panic and they didn't see something, attack or foul it must be. So I think probably well played by him. Good captain, really. A good man you want to have on your side who knows when to pull out a move like that.
The dark arts.
Yeah, that's the bit of experience that top teams have to get those results that Netherlands don't yet have. But of course, we'll just go back and say that literally just as that foul happened, we were complimenting the referees and the performance so far, and especially their use of the VAR, which has been really successful, I think. It's such a quick turnaround and makes key decisions. It's found a real good niche of, okay, does the ball cross the line or has a player just been hit in the face, and they've been correct most of the time. So good refereeing so far in the tournament.
Great game though, nonetheless. And I think it really showed how much the Netherlands, and not we shouldn't have two whole podcasts dedicated in a row to the Netherlands, but this is the last game we saw, so I think we can touch on it a little bit before we move on. But producing another performance like they did today really shows that they are the real deal at this championship. It wasn't just a one-off fluke, and to come back into that game as they did, 5 goals down and almost get a draw there was very impressive.
Can we just take a couple more moments to appreciate the performance from Kai Smits? That was an unbelievable game from him, and it was actually a historic game. So I've got some facts on him that I got from Twitter from Rasmus and Fabian Koch. Very worth following Fabian Koch for some great stats on the EHF EURO. But he was the 4th player ever to score 10 plus goals in their first 2 games of a championship. He was also only the 15th player ever to score 13 goals in a championship. And he's played 5 European Championship in a game, and he's played 5 European Championship games and hasn't scored less than 7 goals. So over the 2 tournaments, he scored 7, 7, 8, 11, 13. So I'm expecting 15 goals from him in the next game to bring Netherlands to the main round.
Well, yeah, it's not only his 5th game; it's all of their 5th game, which is incredible to think. That when we spoke to them, Chris, we sat down with Bobby Shaggins and Bobby Schagen and jeez, I'm losing it there. Speaking German.
You're the Flemish speaker as well, Brian.
Oh my God! When we sat down with Bobby and Kai back before the last Euro, it was literally like we're sitting down with it's people who were just happy to be here, and the Euro later, and they just seem like the most, like they really belong here. Not only do they belong here, you feel like they give anybody a game, which is really, really incredible.
And it's a really enticing game now on Tuesday evening between the Netherlands and Portugal. Like, the new underdogs versus the old underdogs. And I just can't wait to see that battle between Kai Smits and Luke Steins against that big old Portuguese defence. Like, it's going to be a real clash of styles. I have no idea how it's going to go. There may be one or two decapitations, but it's going to be fun.
I'm just happy that those two guys in the Netherlands don't play against Belarus, because they would actually be decapitated, and especially Bokan, who is just gunning for the shithouser of the tournament crown this year.
Well, his chances are going away quickly, because they're out of the championship. Belarus are now out.
But shithouse per minute has been pretty impressive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I didn't keep my eye too much on the Belarus Poland game, but again, another feather in your cap, Alex, for your Polish side, who you fancy to go a long way at this championship. They're through to the main round.
Absolutely, and they showed some great handball in this game against Belarus. I had that on at the same time. I've mastered the dual screen now, so working well. I haven't built up to 3 screens yet. I think that's physically impossible. But I was particularly impressed with Olejniczak, who we kind of singled out as a potential star. And to date, I hadn't seen him really take over a game, but he did that. He got player of the match. He really tore apart and had that confidence that I was looking for. I'm really impressed by Poland, and looking forward to seeing more and more of them.
Yeah, we've already moved on from the other game in Group B tonight, and it feels like a long time ago already. I mean, so many results to talk about. We can fly through, but Hungary finally getting themselves a win in what was enthralling. It wasn't a very pretty game by any means. The handball wasn't always great, but the atmosphere again rocking. And this time they seem to enjoy the atmosphere a little bit. In particular, Dominic Mathé, who scored 8 goals, including barnstorming match winner just before the buzzer against Portugal, who are now on the edge of elimination. And you got to feel for them as well, because that was an entertaining game where it felt like nobody deserved to lose.
Hungary, I was impressed by them because they used the energy of the crowd this time. They were really getting pumped up throughout the game, and it seemed to help them. And they did, they went into a 3-goal lead towards the end, and it seemed like they were going to run away with it, or at least close it up. And the panic snuck back in, and Portugal got the ball to line players very easily, and it really seemed like they lost it. So it's amazing to see Mate come up with that big goal. He did struggle as well in the first game, so again, good to see him step forward. Still not, incredibly impressed by Hungary, and not impressed enough to warrant all the medal considerations they were getting before the tournament. But I hope they can keep growing and keep using the energy of the crowd as the tournament goes on. And I would really want to see them in the main round, at least, to just keep the energy in the Budapest arena thriving.
Keep growing, I think, is the key there. I think, and a goal like that for Dominic Mate, there was so much talk about him before the tournament, and he's gonna have a spring in his step tomorrow when he wakes up with that. Looking at those highlights again, he's a Hungarian hero almost overnight, and I think they probably needed him to almost have those kind of moments, because there's been a lot of talk about him, and now he really has that big Euro goal, big Euro win, and I think that's a big plus for them. So you could see them in the next game going up another level, and hopefully they will.
I don't want to dampen the mood too much, but the result between Iceland and the Netherlands now hasn't really helped Hungary in any way, because doing quick maths here, if Hungary do beat Iceland, as they feel like they need to, and the Netherlands beat Portugal, the 3 teams go into a head-to-head, and the Netherlands have won a game by 3 and lost one by 1, so they're on +2 goal difference. Iceland on +1, and Hungary on -3. So in that case, if the Netherlands beat Portugal, Netherlands are through, and it's between Iceland and Hungary to go through in second place then, which is phenomenal, or potentially first place depending on how much they win by. And even if Iceland beat Hungary and Portugal beat the Netherlands, then it's Hungary, Netherlands and Portugal who go into a 3-way race, And again, Hungary have only won by 1 goal against Portugal. They lost by 3 against the Netherlands, so they're in -2 goals. Netherlands are in +3 and Portugal on -1. So it's bad news at the moment for Hungary.
I tell you what, Chris, I'm glad you're here because my brain does not go to those places.
I said quick math. It wasn't so quick after all, but it's a lot. It all depends, of course, on how the last games go. Nothing is guaranteed, but win and then you see how you get on. And in Hungary's case, try to win by a lot.
Definitely, and it's crazy to think that they were level with Netherlands with a couple of minutes to go and managed to lose by 3 goals. So really important. Every game is absolutely crucial in this championship.
On that Hungary-Portugal game, another thing that crossed my mind during the second half, because while Hungary was scoring 100% in the first 10 minutes or so in the second half, Martin Shkreli was making some really big saves for the Hungarian side. And then it crossed my mind, it was like, oh, wait a second, Shkreli played some of the second half of the season with Porto under tragic circumstances, of course, because he, after the death of Alfredo Quintana, Vesprem loaned him out to Porto for the rest of the season just to play in league games. Crazy to think what must have been going through Shkreli's mind, maybe after the game as well, or even while he was on the court, because he went there under very emotional circumstances, and it must have been a real bonding experience in a way that nobody expected. And there he was then, basically saving Hungary against a number of his former teammates. So something to bear in mind there. And all of that was just on Sunday night, where there was only 4 games. How about the 8 games on Saturday night? But we're going to take a break before we go into all those games on Saturday night and look ahead to the final round of matches in the preliminary round, because we've got a big interview for you today, and it's with one of the emerging profiles of this championship. It's France's Karl Konan, who is playing his first major championship, only had a handful of games for the French team before coming into this, and he has a pretty incredible story. Originally from Ivory Coast, he was discovered by Daouda Karaboué, the French international goalkeeper, while playing in the Ivory Coast. And Karaboué took a big chance and convinced him to go over to France and try his luck at the age of 17. Now, almost 9 years later, here he is playing for the national team, and he's been a real revelation in defense for them. Great story. Let's hear it from the man himself. Here is Karl Konan. Karl, thanks a lot for taking the time to chat with us. I think for the international handball audience, you're quite a newcomer. And from what we've heard, you have a fascinating story. I'm sure you've been asked about it loads of times, but maybe you could give us a bit of an insight into your story. And I would like to take it back to when you were 14 years old and a certain Ivorian French handball player you met at home.
Yeah, I was playing basketball at the beginning. And one day I wanted to try handball with some friends. I like it because my mother played also handball when she was young. And after this, I met Daouda Karaboué, the international goalkeeper of French team, few years ago. And he proposed me to try some tests in different clubs in France. At the beginning, I wanted to be focused on my law studies, so it was not in the plan to be a professional handball player. And I say, why not? I made a lot of reflection with my parents because it was a really important decision for myself and for my future. I found that it was a good opportunity for me. Handball is my passion. I finished also my studies. I'm in the last year of master, so it's cool. I play handball and I finished my studies, so it's cool.
I wasn't quite sure there. So you started playing when you were 14. And then how long was it before you started to have talks with people to move then to France? What's the timeline there?
I began, on 14, and 3 years after I met Daouda Karaboué. And the 4th year I was in France. And then the year after I was signing a contract, pro contract with X.
Wow. That's phenomenal. Paint a picture about handball in Côte d'Ivoire and how it's like. What's the scene like, and what was it for you as a teenager?
I think that in Ivory Coast we have a lot of potential. I'm not the only one, and maybe I'm not the best. I think there's a lot of potential in Ivory Coast, but the problem is that we are not enough prepared like in France with when you are a kid, you are prepared to every step until the professional profile, So there's a lot of problem of infrastructure, but I hope with my story I can inspire a lot of people who believe that it's possible. Because if I reach to here, it's possible for everybody.
That early move then to France, when you arrived in France, what it was like for you personally trying to settle in and with your first new professional club?
The first year was it was a little difficult because of the climate. It was too cold for me. I arrived in November. the summer for me was 20 degrees, and I arrived in a country with 16 or something like this. So it was a little difficult. But no, it's the only problem. It's the only little problem. I have been really, really well integrated in the team. There was a lot of people around me to protect me and to show me the direction in handball or the out of handball with my friends, and my teammates. So it was very cool. I think Ace was the best destination for me. At the beginning, there was Nuka Saldarozic as coach. Luka Karabatic still played there for his last year before moving to Paris. So it was a good school to learn the handball basis.
How funny that all those years later now that you've taken his place for this championship in the center of the defense.
Yes. Yes, after I take his place during his having a rest, the story is incredible, because I remember that in X I was behind him and I was following his advices about how to play, how to have the position in defense. So it was cool, and we kept after he went to Paris, we kept contact, and with Nuka also Saldarozic. So that's cool. That's cool. That's
landed in X eventually, but I know you had some trials with other clubs like Nantes, and in a situation like that, also for any young player, I can imagine it's very difficult to knowing that you have a very short time to make an impression and to get a contract with a team. What did you find was the biggest difference between your experience in handball back home in Ivory Coast and what you were experiencing with these new clubs in France on the court?
I think the level of professional, the infrastructure, everything was right. Everything was at its position. You have the time. You have to be there. Everything was well planned. In Ivory Coast, we don't have this kind of organization. That is the point that we have to work, and we could get out a lot of potential. Everything is about organization, I think.
And how has it been for you now, making your appearance for the national team in France? How has the journey been to that point, and your first few big experiences on the European stage?
For sure, I was a little stressed at the beginning when I saw my name on the final list, but it was a good stress. I always dream about that since I'm young. I remember that I got the poster of the national team with Zidane in the beginning. So when I was 14, and be here today, take his place, something like this, is incredible, and it's permit me to show to myself that I put all the things to be here.
Brilliant. And I heard from Kevin Domas, who's been speaking to you a lot, that you were particularly nervous before the first game against Croatia.
The atmosphere was very, very special. When we get on the ground and everybody was high, it was incredible. But I like it to play in this arena. It was really, really, really interesting, and I was more motivated to show myself and to show my potential on the international level.
The game you played against Croatia, I was commentating on it, and it was incredible because it looked like you really belonged to that defense, even though you were so new to it. And you were everywhere. You played such a clean game. You were always there tackling, no real heavy fouls or anything, but you looked very natural in the position. Was there a certain point in the game where you thought, okay, I know exactly what I'm doing here and I feel really comfortable? Or were you a bit on edge for the entire match?
Now, I have to say that I have been really, really well integrated in the team since my first stages. Everybody was cool with me, and everybody showed me, make me confident. And even the coach told me what he wanted for me, what he was expected for me. So I was really comfortable at the first, and I know that my strength is to move a lot and to go everywhere, and I make it by myself natural, and I'm at the service of the team.
Is that what the coach said to you, that he wants you to be active, moving around, or when he said to you, I want you to do this, what exactly did he say to you, that your role is in the team?
No, he showed me the system of the team. I stay in the system of the team. He know my qualities of moving fast and to help the others after. So he told me, you stay in the system, but you can do what you do in your club, but at the system of the team. It's
probably top secret anyway. You probably can't tell us the secret.
Yes, it's a secret team.
Fair enough, Karl. Have you noticed a lot of new interest in the Ivory Coast at home since this championship has begun? I guess in the handball community, everybody's already talking about you and sending you good wishes, but have you noticed a lot of interest from fans or the media back in the Ivory Coast?
Yes, everybody followed this, and it's cool. It was a good, important choice for myself, but they know that I'm stay somewhere Ivorian. It's my homeland, and they're happy for my life and for what I achieved until here.
You've had to make some big choices on this journey. Like you said, you were studying back at home. You had to give up on studying law to go to France. And there you knew there was no guarantee of success when you go to France. Has these choices and the success you have had, does that have a big influence in the way that you look at the sport and I guess the success that you've had so far?
Yes, for sure. Making this decision, I was not sure that I would have success like this. It was a big sacrifice. After I got the support of my family and of Dauda, so I was confident on myself, and I try. If you don't try, you don't know if you can get success or not. So for the moment, it's cool. So I hope that it will continue.
Brilliant. Karl, I know you have to take a rest and get ready for the big game against Serbia tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have another great atmosphere for that game as well. Did you see the game last night and the intense atmosphere?
Yeah, for sure. And it was with, 7,000 people in the arena. It was incredible. I think that everybody in the team is waiting for this kind of match. We know that it will be very important for Croatia or for Serbia also. So we will be focused on us to get the most of points for the second round.
Good stuff, Karl. Thanks a lot for the chat and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Incredible story from Karl, and looking forward to see if he can fill Didier Denare's shoes at this tournament. I like the way that initially he compared him to Luka Karabatic, and he was like, no, I'm taking Denare's shoes here. I'm better than this. I like that confidence, but France got a very easy win in their second game of the tournament, really didn't come out of second gear against Ukraine. I don't think there's too much to talk about. They got a chance to rotate the squad, which they've been doing in the tournament so far. So still waiting to see France getting challenged at this tournament. But the big shock of the game day had to be Norway losing to Russia 23-22. And it's a surprise, but in many ways, it's not that surprising. So I think Norway didn't have the hype going into this tournament for a reason. And none of us had them kind of anywhere near the medals. There wasn't that much buzz going around it. Even though after our interview with Sagosen, I got a little bit more excited. But it seems to not be clicking for him at this tournament so far.
I want to ask you a question, Alex, because I think you saw a lot more of this than I did because I was doing the Serbia-Croatia battle at the same time. But Patrick Rowlands on Twitter, he's a commentator for Norwegian national broadcaster, said that Christian Berger said before the match that we must not be tempted into shooting from 9 meters. Norway then took 16 shots from 9 meters and scored 3 of them. That's 19%. 19%. And Patrick asks, and I'm asking you, did Norway fall into a Russian trap here?
A little bit. So it's. I didn't know that they wanted to avoid shooting 9 meters because it was very successful for them in the first game. So they took 19 9-meter shots against Slovakia and scored 12 of them. So that was very successful. But against Russia, obviously that didn't work. And again, we've seen handball move away from that 9-meter shot. And it's something that Norway haven't really done. But I think overall, Norway's problem is that they've become too predictable. Especially, I was watching the game and Reinkind does the same thing every single time. He fakes outside, goes inside, and either takes a shot or kind of barrels through. He does it every single time. At the same time, Sagosen is becoming a little bit predictable because he moves really into the middle, takes his big jump and makes a decision from there. And what Russia did was just wait for both of those moves, which is 60% of Norway's attacks. I think Christian Sullivan hasn't really clicked in this tournament so far. He hasn't been the kind of wild card that they need him to be to do something different. And it comes down to a thought that I had at the start of this tournament, and I actually asked Sander about that, whether this team is getting a little bit stale. I said it in slightly kinder words. And he had full confidence in the squad that they have. But it really feels like the Norwegian team is getting a little bit stale. And I put that blame a little bit on Christian Berger because Norway have just been playing with the same 9 players for the last 6 years. You know, even on the wing, Gulliksen is an incredible right winger who has kind of lit up the Bundesliga this season. But he doesn't get minutes ahead of Christian Bjørnsen. Even when there is star players there, they just don't get a chance. And, you know, Norway should have been integrating players into the broader scheme way earlier. Now that they're missing Gøran Søgaard and Magnus Ruud, that squad is diminished. And you have a player like Simon Pedersen, who's been incredible for Elverum, kind of just taking his first minutes in this championship, or a player like Grøndal who didn't even get called up. And I think that's a bit of an issue.
And you said integrate there, and Grøndal, that was one of the reasons I've been reading that he wasn't included in the squad, because they didn't have time to integrate him. But at the same time, the kind of championship this is, you have Croatia, who are dipping into their 44th choice player or something like that to come into the squad, just throw them in there, and they're winning matches against Serbia with them. So I mean, this is not a championship where I think you can rely on those kind of excuses. Nobody had a normal build up to this. So yeah, it feels like in hindsight it was a gamble worth taking, particularly when you could take 20 players with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a terrible decision, but it also it is the way that Christian Berger thinks. He has his set players and he'll only play with them. And now that they're missing 2 of those set players, it's just more difficult. And but let's not take it away from Russia, who executed a really good game plan, especially defensively. So in attack, they still struggled a little bit, but defensively, they really shut down Norway. And yeah, there's a bright future for this Russian team. And just one last props, because they do have a right-handed right back, the only team in the tournament that has a full-time right-handed right back in Kotov playing, who does a really good job of just attacking that outside. So exciting for Russia.
And they could get knocked out if they lose to Slovakia tomorrow. But that's not going to happen, huh? Slovakia won a game, they beat Lithuania, which actually puts them in contention. So that's another group where things could come down to a nice 3-way league table. Brian, what game or games on Saturday night stood out for you?
Well, I was in the arena for Spain-Sweden. And another very enjoyable game. I think I was really impressed actually with how Spain, we talk about Norway not integrating any new players, and how Spain have said goodbye to their old guard and integrated some new players who, yeah, I think in certain parts of the game, in attack especially, looked a little bit sometimes out of sorts, but weren't punished for it. And then as the game went on, they grew into it a lot more. And Fernandez on the wing was just absolutely incredible. I mean, before the game, we were doing Instagram stories, and I wanted to put a focus on the wings, which we ended up not doing anyway. But we didn't, and both wingers, Fernandez and Hampus Vane, were the keystones for both sides. But Spain, Sweden, you could watch them play 100 times, and it's going to be really entertaining. They're just 2 great sides to watch. I think Sweden looked very, very frustrated in the second half, and I was sitting beside Jim Gottfriedson when he came down to the bench, and he was constantly talking to the table and not even watching the game. Every time he came off, he was just looking over the table and chatting to them about referee decisions. And I was kind of thinking, just focus on the game a bit more. Every time he came off, he was doing it. And it's like almost like his head was somewhere else. And he did play well, I'm not saying that. But it was just maybe something not quite right with them on that evening. They just seemed a little bit off. I don't know what he seemed. It didn't seem like the Sweden that I was expecting, maybe.
It's an interesting one, because I had really hyped Sweden going into the tournament, have them as my winners, but they were just inferior to Spain in every way in that game, which was a huge surprise for me. They were missing Max Starch, who tested positive for COVID, which is really unfortunate for them, because he's a big defensive presence and has become better and better in attack. And I don't think Pedersen is really good enough of a line player for them, to replace Max Starch. Otherwise, they just seemed frustrated. It's a really good way of putting it. On Spain's side, it was just amazing to see Canellas have an absolute barnstormer of a game. You gotta love it. He's gone into semi-retirement in Cadet Schaffhausen, and then shows up and throws a few rockets into the top corner. So what Spain have done extremely well is that integration, and they allow their kind of newer players. They're not all young. So Pacina is their new defensive specialist who's replaced Vera Moros. He's 31 years old. He's been playing for this Spanish B team for a long time, and that's probably one thing that Spain have done really well to allow this integration, is that for many years now they've had a Spanish second team playing high-level competitive matches. So players like Casado, Tarafeta and Pacina have been regulars in those second team matches against top nations like Argentina. And, Spain would always come out very competitively out of those games. So they've been able to layer them in very easily. And that shows. I still don't fully believe in Spain as a full contender in this championship, because I don't think you get that performance from Canellas every time, and they need one player to just erupt in every game to get the big victories, and it's just not as obvious without someone like Alex Dushbaev.
Any other games you had?
I think we have to go into the big occasion of the weekend, and that was the Balkan Derby between Croatia and Serbia. You were commentating, you were in the arena, Chris, you were listening to the fans go absolutely mental. How was it?
It was great fun. It's fantastic. Even towards the end of the France-Ukraine game, you could hear that the arena started to buzz up already. And just an amazing atmosphere, a completely sold out arena in terms of tickets available, just over 8,100. And it was brilliant. Both sets of fans really disrespecting each other's nationality at the start, but and I was getting worried, I'll be honest. Like, we had, I think after 5 or 6 minutes of actual time, we had a minute played. We're going to be here all night, people. This is we had like 2-minute suspensions. We had about 6 mops on the floor trying to sweep up the beer. But after that, like, initial, everyone got it out of their system in terms of like the nasty stuff from the fans. And after that, it was just a brilliant occasion. And it was exactly the game that we all thought it would be in terms of how tight it was. And your scoreline prediction, Alex, was pretty damn good in the end. 21-21, you had it. 23-20 was the final score. It was just a real slog. And I have to give so much credit to both teams, but particularly to Croatia, who really don't care. They're the Burnley of handball, but much better. If you know what I mean. They don't care.
That's niche. That is so niche.
That's a really weird way.
Burnley,
but better.
Or like,
how about a Jose Mourinho handball team?
No, you know what? They're like Stoke City when they had Rory Delap taking those long throw-ins from the sideline. They're getting really niche here. No, too niche. Sorry,
so niche.
They are a bit like a Jose Mourinho team when they win, because they don't care what anyone thinks of them. They know what best way to get a result is. They can play in any way you want. They throw out different systems of attack and defense. They have different players who can provide different things. Lucas Indrich, for example, was just phenomenal. Like, what a return to the fray for him. But no team makes time disappear quite like Croatia. And you really have to feel for Serbia, who just, like, every time they had a 2-minute suspension advantage, it just disappeared before their eyes because they had one attack and then time disappeared. It was really composed performance in that sense from Croatia. They withstood a lot of pressure. They did everything they had to do. Tin Lucin, again, was fantastic. You mentioned him in the last podcast, Brian. He's been a standout. Ivan Martinovic really stepped up to the mark as well. As I said, they had 2 new left wingers because of COVID cases. And they all just had a really good game. And in particular, I have to give a big shout out to Mate Šunjić, the second choice goalkeeper, who came into the squad and came into the game kind of unexpectedly for Ivan Perisic and made 4 or 5 really, really important saves in that second half. He's got an interesting story as well. He's 34 years old. He's playing in Ivry in France, and somebody I'll look into a little bit more. Supposedly a really smart guy, just like a maths and engineering whiz, so you'd like him, Alex. And turns out to be a really good goalkeeper as well. All wide open, though, in that group still, because Serbia, who didn't play a bad game themselves, and now take on France, a team that they beat and drew against in qualification as well. So overall, I think heading into this final round of matches, there's a lot to look forward to.
Just one more point on that, and Serbia just are lacking a bit of firepower, and I was trying to think why, and it came to me that Peter Georgic is not playing in this championship. I'm not sure.
He did. He played in the first game.
Played in the first game.
He wasn't in the squad for Saturday's game, but he did come on in the first game, and he scored a goal as well. But I don't know the exact reason why, but he didn't play on Saturday, but I guess he's just not fit.
Yeah, and that might be one of the, let's say, COVID side effects on this Serbian team, which is very unfortunate. But I was really looking forward to seeing Kugic and Georgic line up together as they've been doing in Benfica, has been really effective. And Georgic has been having an incredible season, just bombing away. And I think that's something that Serbia are missing quite a lot at this championship.
So, Alex, I noticed on Twitter you were talking about that you've probably never seen more in-flight goals at this tournament.
There's a couple of trends that I've really liked at this Euro. That is one of them. In-flight goals have become an absolute mainstay in normal handball play, which is exciting to see. But it's also pretty incredible to see teams go to it again and again. And we saw Spain score 3 of them in one game, but also in that Iceland-Netherlands game, in the last 5 minutes, both teams attempted an in-flight goal. When there's, the game on the line, Iceland scored, Netherlands almost scored an incredible goal, but Boomhauer threw it behind his back and then a little bit wide. So it's exciting. I think it's because defenses are becoming more and more aggressive. There's space for people to run in around and take advantage of that space. So it's pretty exciting. Another trend that I noticed throughout the games today in both the Portugal and the Netherlands games was, have you noticed in close games, when a timeout is called, the coach gives his little segment and it's always the playmaker that comes up and says, okay, yeah, fine, coach. No, this is what we're doing. It happened for Portugal with Rui Silva. He came in and was like, okay, we're doing this, we're playing this is how the ball's going. It happened for Netherlands with Luke Steins, where he came in and was like, this is exactly what we're doing. And it actually happened with Hungary and Lekai taking over and making that key decision. So I love that.
Yeah, no, I did notice that. The thing about the playmakers, because I often go onto the court during the timeouts to record bits, and it's always coach first, and then, for example, at the Sweden game, Jim Gofferson would speak every single timeout. I've noticed that too.
And a trend I don't like is spitting at fans or opposing fans, which Marko Lasica did after Montenegro's game against North Macedonia, where he ran up to the North Macedonian fans, who have been incredible at this tournament. It's been great to see them, and got quite angry and spit at them, and justifiably got a €5,000 fine. But yeah, hopefully won't be seeing more of that trend.
Yeah, there's no way back after that. Gone too far. You can't apologise your way out of doing something like that. It's just not good. Montenegro, who won it, now have a chance to go through to the main round. They're playing against Slovenia in a big game in Group A. Loads of tickets for the main round up for grabs on the final day. How many people have actually qualified before we go? So, Denmark have qualified. Poland have qualified. Germany have qualified. Spain have qualified. And that's it. That means there are 8 spots in the main round still to be contested in the final 2 days of the preliminary round. So that's pretty exciting. And we'll be back on Wednesday the 19th with a live show. Yes, we're going back in. Not for 3 hours this time. But again, we're going to fire through all the games to come in the main round and predict them with a few special guests.
I can't believe we haven't talked about this. It's been the biggest game of the whole week. I can't. Alex, you had a game today, didn't you?
Let's say my game went as well as your prediction between Denmark and Slovenia, and leave it at that.
I thought we were going to go one podcast without bringing up where I stand in the leader tables. Oh my god!
More chat about the prediction game and all the main round games to come on Wednesday afternoon. I think the idea is to do it at 4:00 on the Home of Handball Twitch channel. So join us then, or listen to it afterwards on the podcast. Until then, take care and goodbye.